What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into our latest Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Lots to get into today. Got an interesting interview coming up with MindMed CEO Robert Barrow. He's been about 18 months ago. Want to get the latest in what their phase 3 trial for GAD, Generalized Anxiety Disorder, and how that's progressing. And but we could talk about commercialization. They've made some recent appointments. And let's face it, this company has come to the forefront with some of the best IP in the psychedelic space. As well, a White House official yesterday, as Marijuana Moment broke the news, saying that cannabis reform and rescheduling, all this sort of stuff, not at this time. How much should we read into that? Me personally, not much. So with that, let's welcome in AV here on a Wednesday. Hump Day. Good to see you.
How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I've got a cold.
What happened?
I have no idea.
Getting a lot of rain in Fort Lauderdale?
We are not.
Got your cowboy hat?
It's starting to get hot and humid again, though.
Saw it's supposed to be 90 degrees on Sunday in beautiful Fort Lauderdale. That's hot. That's steamy.
I'm quite congested right now. So trying to it's weird knowing that I'm a harbinger of germs with the baby.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
So it's a little bit of a mind fuck.
Yeah, that would be. How's the missus? How's mom? She's like handling the fort down?
Yeah. Luckily, it's the first time you're actually supposed to wear a mask. If you're sick, it causes the germs not to come out, which is actually what they're intended for.
Yes.
Not the COVID use.
Yes. David Benz, good to see you. Greetings from Medford, Oregon. What's this all about? Trump stalling. Yeah, I kind of got it ready to click on that. That's a clickbait title to get you to log on to the live stream. Yes, Jamie.
Admitting the third rail.
Something you shouldn't do. It's the world we live in right now. Jamie Campbell. Yes. And quote, unnamed White House official. Don't you love a lot of those unnamed people? Yeah.
That's why I've taken absolutely no legitimacy into it.
Yeah. Oh, John Ham. John, are we being nice today? You've been a little testy the last couple of days. Give that man
John says he's rolling a joint right now, so he's probably very, very relaxed.
All right. Good to see you, John. I hope you're happy, my friend. If not, like you said, roll a fatty. Okay, let's begin into the wire and begin with a story that was reported yesterday by Tom Angel from Marijuana Moment on perhaps the Trump administration stalling cannabis. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. A White House official told CNN a report published on Tuesday that, quote, no action is being considered at this time as far as cannabis is concerned. So at first glance, anytime the topic of cannabis reform gets brought up, it's obviously going to grab a lot of attention in the cannabis industry. But we all know CNN, they don't really specialize in one thing. They talk about broad issues. And I don't know how much they follow the space. That's a question I can't answer, nor am I interested in answering that question. But saying all this, and I can already get a response from you, how much weight should we be giving this?
I'm not giving it any weight. It's coming from CNN and it's coming from an anonymous source. If we get somebody from the DEA that is actually saying we've got no interest in pushing this forward at this time, if we've got somebody from the administration, the new drug czar, that comes out and says we have no interest in pushing cannabis reform forward at this time, I'll believe them. I'll take it at face value, and then we're going to have to reevaluate exactly what we're doing around here.
Yeah.
It's an anonymous source. It's CNN. One thing I have heard, and this is from somebody directly within the administration, they want to control the narrative. They don't want a lot of things getting out. They don't want to be relaying to the public what their plans are, and they want to be controlling it, and they're going to do things when they want to do them.
100%.
It is what it is. I don't put any weight towards it. Good headline, though. Completely killed the momentum in the market that was building in the morning. It is what it is.
Yeah. Take this for what it's worth, people. But that's one of the things that we did here last week in Washington, that indeed this Trump administration does want to control this narrative. And if and when something does happen, this is going to come out of left field and when people least expect it. But I wouldn't buy much into this. And quite honestly, I do think that there's probably stuff going on behind the scenes right now where they're talking about some of this stuff and fielding calls. But again, timing wise, I can't comment on that. But
I think Sarah Carter is arguably going to be the loudest voice in the room for cannabis reform.
I think that's a great announcement. The more I think about it, 48 hours later, I know I did an evergreen video yesterday, but when I was actually talking about it in the video, I learned a lot and realized, yeah, this is a big win for, I think, the cannabis space.
It is. It is. She's one of the only. She's actually the only person that had a positive say on the industry and on medical marijuana that actually has come out on social media. Granted, it was 2 emojis and don't think much into it, but reiterated and showed her position on the subject. I don't think she's going to shy away from it. I think she's going to talk about it when the time comes and when she gets in front of a microphone. There needs to be people that are engaging her and asking about it.
Yes,
because we're not going to get any sort of rhetoric from her unless there are voices in the room and there are people that are talking to her and engaging on the topic.
agreed.
If I'm a lobbyist in DC, if I'm any of these industry executives, the few that do actually go to Washington, DC and engage in the conversation, I'm going after her for insights on what's actually going to happen and or what the pulse is on the appetite for enacting meaningful cannabis reform.
Well, wish me luck. I sent her a DM this morning to see if we can get her on the live stream. So hopefully she responds and gets that message. But
she knows media. She's from Fox News. She understands the way this stuff works. Hopefully she does. And obviously she's always welcome on the program.
Well, kind of hinted in there that I was a former Bloomberg executive, because sometimes with these podcasts, you don't know what you're getting into because we don't have the brand recognition. But let's face it, we're trying to build basically the best business podcast in cannabis. And I think it would be incredible to have her on. One thing I think it should be incredible is I think we should start incorporating a comment of the day, meaning like in the actual live stream, because this could be it here today, Guap. I'm starting to think an unnamed White House officials might not be aware of all the work being done on cannabis. And even if they were aware, they might not be in a position to comment on them at this time. Bingo. That's bullseye, Guap. Good call.
David's also got a very good point that Canadian LP investors, we still have many non-US international markets which are growing. I strongly suggest, and this is not financial advice, going through Aurora Cannabis's most recent investor presentation and look at the markets that they're penetrating worldwide in line with patient growth in those markets. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Who would have thought? What a turnaround story. But the announcement, he was at last week or 2 weeks ago, based on the technology for
on the genetic modification of knocking out the powdery mildew genome. Yeah, that's big. I don't think they haven't disclosed if they plan to commercialize it or internalize it at this current point in time. And it's going to be something to see, but they are going after international markets in a big way, especially Australia. That's getting close to 1 million patients.
I think it's all about timing.
Medical market.
I would commercialize it in due time, maybe not right now. Show me that it works, and then see how the bottom line obviously represents at the end of each quarter. And if it works, then it's all about demand. And if you got a technology in place that's obviously improving your bottom line, that's going to create a lot of interest in the space. But great job, Rick Savoni, who's head of global affairs for Aurora Cannabis. We've reached out to him, as I said to you guys last week, met him in Washington. So we're hoping to get him on probably at some point next week. We got a busy week coming up. Who do we have coming up on Friday? Do we have confirmed?
On Friday, we have Margaret Brody
yes,
from Rubicon Organics. We'll be on at 11 o'clock to talk their earnings and talk about premium brands in Canada.
Yeah. And then as well, Organigram is going to be coming on. Bina Goldenberg on Monday had an interesting announcement they made.
They're in the hemp beverage business now. When we'll also be talking to her about their rebranding that they just announced. I think it was last week on Monday.
Everybody getting into the hemp beverage. Hey, you starting a hemp beverage? What do you think? Something you thought about?
I'll leave it at that.
All right. What else we got? Mohammed Shaheen. I haven't seen you in a while, but good to see you. And I need to read one of your comments because I know you'd asked about some of these share prices right now. Look, once we start seeing this market start to move again, that's going to be obviously a lot of the narrative and conversation we'll start incorporating back in to this live stream. But we got to look at this right now. These are some low prices. And I know a lot of people are thinking, do we take advantage at some of these all-time lows right now? Question is it a good time, you think, to buy? And I can't comment. I don't think you're going to as well, Anthony, because this is not an investment advice show. But you can't help but wonder and think that some of these prices are very low right now. And, man, tremendous upside if we got reform. But that remains to be the big question. He's keeping quiet.
Yeah.
All right. With that, let's move to your home state. You are in Florida. And news broke again yesterday from our good friend Tom, Marijuana Moment, getting a lot of your information, Tom, so keep up the great work. Where their adult use campaign is facing what appears to be a major hurdle. It includes election law violations and allegations of fraudulent petitions, which is all being orchestrated by the Office of Election Crimes and Security, which is part of the Florida Department of State, aka Governor Ron DeSantis. Any kind of impact you think this will have? What do you see?
Happy burner with the second comment of the day. That's pretty much my response to what you just said.
One time, maybe he said every whole number can be cut in half. Stuck with me regarding cheap prices around here. Yeah. Do you think this has any impact on this latest announcement on, I guess, the legal challenges on the broader scale things when it comes to adult use? Clearly, it does.
Do think it does. I think it needs to be seen whether this is going to get dismissed or thrown out. The amount of legs that it has is to be determined. I think this is retaliatory for the lawsuit that Smart and Safe filed against the Republican Party of Florida during the campaign last year, that myself and I know Brady and a couple other people thought that was a misstep. That was punching the bee's nest, and I don't really think it needed to be done. It was a little bit arrogant. At the end of the day, the governor of the state of Florida does not want adult use cannabis in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. That is clear. There is nothing clearer in this industry than the fact that Ron DeSantis does not want adult use cannabis in the state of Florida, at least on his watch. I don't think he's going to pull any punches. I think he's going to fight it tooth and nail until the day that he leaves that office.
Yes.
In 2026. I think it's going to be a tough road to get the ballot initiative on in 2026, in line with the gubernatorial race. There's going to be a lot to be determined in the state of Florida as it relates to the viability of adult use cannabis. I think that if it has any chance, it's going to have to be done through the legislature.
Yes.
Moving forward, which is tough, and it's going to be a feat in of itself. We'll get it someday. I just don't think it's going to surely happen before 2026.
How much more of this is personal versus actually not wanting cannabis to pass in Florida? Because it seems it's become very personal between him and Kim Rivers from Trulieve.
I can't really speak on that, as I don't have any fact of the matter. If you want to go off of what we have seen in the public eye, he's been very vocal about cannabis companies having monopolies and large operators in the state of Florida. And you could read between the lines. He was talking about Trulieve and a lot of his anti-amendment rhetoric. That's there. I don't know what they might have done to piss him off or not donate to his campaigns. Trulieve is a big taxpayer in the state of Florida. Trulieve provides a lot of Floridians with a lot of medical marijuana in the state of Florida, which I want to remind everybody, Ron DeSantis brought smokable flower to the state of Florida, enhancing the business that Trulieve and the rest of the MMTCs are now operating within. It'd be nice to see him want to further the marijuana program within the state of Florida. But as you can see, he's going to fight tooth and nail on this. There might be more legal challenges moving forward. And this one is just, like I said, retaliatory and potentially frivolous with its claims.
Wild. Because when you put it that way about how much tax money that actually truly pays in the state of Florida. And, I think you made a good point about, a monopoly. And there were some things that I think looking back now, as far as the Smart and Safe and with kind of control that really, brought a lot of people's attention, whether you're for or against, obviously, adult use passing. But there was some valid points. But saying all this, you and I are having this conversation 2 years from now. There's a new governor in place. What are the lessons that we can learn from everything through this whole exercise when it comes to utilizing the right campaign, the right messaging to get eventually what we'd like to see, which is adult use cannabis passed in Florida?
The only thing that's going to matter is who's sitting in that chair.
Agreed.
That's it. It's not going to be campaign messaging. It's not going to be Kim throwing another $150 million at it. It's not going to be marching on Tallahassee and having a picket outside of the state capitol. The only thing that's going to matter in 2020, from 2026 onwards, is who's sitting in that chair. Is it Byron Donalds? Is it John Morgan? Is it Casey DeSantis? Is it somebody else that's going to throw their hat in the race and run? If it's a Republican, we might have some tough sledding, depending on the stance. If it's Casey DeSantis, it's not getting passed within her tenure of being in the governor's seat. If it's John Morgan, we're getting adult use cannabis in the state of Florida, unless the voters all decide that they just are against it at this point in time. I do think the strongest language that was used in the election cycle leading up to the vote was don't turn Florida into California. While I don't agree with it, I think it's heinous. I think it resonated with a lot of Floridians.
It did.
And they thought about that when they went to the ballot box.
Who put that messaging together? Because that was smart.
DeSantis' team.
Well, it's not
and the anti-amendment 3 opposition. Don't make Florida California.
That whoever was on his team, whatever they wanted to do, that was a lasting impression, and really probably the change that ultimately led to less than 60%.
And the funny thing for people that don't know, the 60% threshold.
Yep.
It was when it was passed. It was either 2016 or 2017. That ballot initiative passed at a 57% vote. Didn't even break the 60% threshold that it was mandating get implemented.
But the people of Florida spoke, Anthony, right? The people of Florida spoke. 57% in favor, 43% no. And I think enough people that don't watch the 6 o'clock news or any of the mainstream coverage can understand and do their due diligence to realize that the people of Florida did speak, and obviously they weren't heard. And that was the lasting impression. But, that's a sizable difference when you look at it.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and onwards and upwards as we try to focus on what's next. But yes, big step, 18 months to answer your question, Ty Grower. Yes, Governor Ron DeSantis will be leaving at the end of 2026.
26. Yeah.
All right, that wraps up Into the Wire here on a Wednesday. Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, on with Anthony Varrell. Now on to segment number 2, Psychedelic Market Minute. All right, bringing you back here on a Wednesday, Trade to Black, and it's now time for our weekly feature, Psychedelic Market Minute, presented by Advisor Shares ETF PSIL, under the ticker symbol PSIL on the New York Stock Exchange. Let's welcome in our guest of the week and arguably one of the biggest names, the CEO of MindMed, Robert Barrow, back to the podcast. Good to see you, sir. How are things?
Things are great. Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it. It's been about a little over a year since we had you on last. I think I kicked off last podcast and you sort of told me that you had a background in golf. So how's the golf game, my friend?
Wish I had more time to play golf. We're too busy with things, cranking our phase 3 program.
Yeah, I'm sure. Listen, it's been a lot of positives for the company since we last spoke. And I look back at this and just was doing a little of research today. And since you were appointed, it's been almost 4 years since you were named CEO. Where does time go? But over that time, you've raised $250 million, extended your cash runway until 2027. With that, you've really become to the forefront as, I would say, the leader in the psychedelic space with some of the best IP. So here we are, April 2025. How would you best describe where MindMed is today and really what the future holds? Because we all can see some of the biggest players in the space in the next 18 to 24 months are going to start announcing a lot of their top line data, which is going to be, I think, hopefully very promising for the psychedelic space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an incredible evolution over the past few years, and
4
years definitely does evaporate. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences. We have such incredible people inside the organization, and to be able to generate some really strong evidence that hopefully moved the field, certainly moved our company forward, but hopefully moved the field forward last year, and continuing to build momentum as we go into our phase 3 program here. So, the years ahead, we've continued to build out our team, some really incredible talent and incredible organization. And now we're in the midst of conducting three phase 3 studies at the moment. So
who would have thought?
Incredibly exciting times. Yeah.
Getting one to phase 3, but a couple, like that's phenomenal. And more importantly, it's something that's badly needed. Is, let's face it, mental health isn't slowing down anytime soon. But some of the data that was reported back in February 2023 in your phase 2, that really grabbed a lot of people's attention pertaining to MM120 for generalized anxiety disorder. How would you say that trial is progressing right now?
Yes, hard to believe it was only 12 months ago. But yeah, 12 months ago, we put out phase 2 data that still stands up to some of the best data that we've seen in the field so far. It allowed us to get a breakthrough therapy designation, allowed us to have a really productive engagement with FDA over the course of 24, and culminating at the end of the year, announcing the first patient in our first study, and in January, first patient in our second study. So studies, we've been incredibly encouraged by the early enrollment trends and the kind of engagement we're seeing from the researchers and from the patients. And now it's just on to execution so we can get data readouts for those 2 studies in 26.
Yeah.
With all of these therapies being in phase 3 and with the readouts on the horizon, with a lot of what we hear and talk about is commercialization and, let's say, implementation as it relates on the clinician side. How much emphasis and how much time do you guys allocate, let's say, strategically thinking about that, even though you're not out of phase 3 yet? Is that part of the conversation, or is that kind of the rubber hits the pavement once you come out of that and then those logistics and strategies start to get figured out?
No, it's a high priority for us, and we just recently announced the addition of Matt Wiley as our new chief commercial officer, who led the Xyrem franchise at Jazz Pharmaceuticals. So he's been an incredible addition already, and really across the board in our organization, one of the most important topics we cover is how we're going to get these products out in the world. We obviously get a high degree of confidence in what we're doing and the probability of success as we move to the phase 3 readouts. So that gives us the luxury of really thinking ahead and thinking ambitiously about how quickly and how broadly we can get these products out there.
Yeah. With Matt, how did the relationship begin? Because his experience, as I was reading, like, he's been very instrumental in launching and scaling pharmaceutical products. So to Anthony's point, putting 2 and 2 together, this is kind of the groundwork that's being laid for commercialization. So with that, like, why did he pick MindMed? How did the relationship begin? And, I guess furthering up to what Anthony said, what should people read into this with an appointment that was announced like this?
Yeah, I won't put words entirely in his mouth, but certainly I think as we've gone out and brought in several roles, including Matt, there's been a huge degree of excitement about joining an organization that is at the forefront of the field of seeing the need and seeing the potential for what these drugs could offer. And really anyone who digs in and looks at the opportunity gets, I think, overwhelmingly excited about how broad the possibility is to get these products out in the world. So as we went through the process with Matt and got to know him well, his experience navigating complex commercial environments, controlled substances, REMS programs, all of that is directly relevant to how we think about the path forward with 120 and really the overall evolution of the organization.
We've seen, so in the last couple of years, I mean, it's probably been the most momentum we've seen in the psychedelic space as it relates to the progression of the trials and data coming out. And at the same time, we've kind of seen the XBI underperform a lot of sectors in the market. Are you engaging more with institutional investors? Are those conversations now starting to pick up, especially as we see a couple people within the administration that are pro psychedelics, and maybe the conversation is starting to take shape that this truly is viable and these are going to have a place in traditional medicine within the United States moving forward, pending trials?
Yeah, so we see a huge engagement with institutional investors. I mean, 24 was a huge year for us with two equity raises, total of 250 million just in that year alone. So with all participation from some of the leading institutional investors. So that's only continued to accelerate, continue to expand. Of course, there's in the financial backdrop with the XBI and the broader sort of macroeconomic and inflation and interest rates considerations over the last few years has not been the period in biotech where there has been an enormous tailwind since I've been in the role, but we certainly are excited about what we're doing and we see a lot of potential. I think as the data, we never want to get ahead of the data, either scientifically, regulatorily, or financially. And so as we get closer and closer to pivotal data, we continue to see that kind of engagement.
And then with yourself now coming up on within 4 years, or I guess 4+ years at MindMed, what has been the most interesting thing that's developed within that last 4 years as it relates to the conversation around psychedelics, whether it's policy, fundamental drivers within the business, data readouts? Like what really has that been within your tenure within the company?
That's a great question. I think you could take it a number of directions. There's certainly been many twists and turns in the journey, both for us as an organization and for the broader field. I think one of the things when I first got involved here and came into the role initially to lead the R&D organization, we charted a path with a big ambitious vision for how the indications we were going after, how we were going to develop the drugs. And we were somewhat unpopular at the time for trying to research research 120 without concurrent psychotherapy, and there's a lot of dialogue around that, and how a lot of folks didn't think that was going to work, and we took a long view there to say the only way to get these products to the number of patients that ultimately could benefit from them potentially is to do that, is to think broader and bigger and longer term about it. And so to see that the narrative pretty dramatically shift from us being the unpopular voice in that regard to now that being the sort of predominant view, and a lot of narrative shift and repositioning around that has been quite interesting to watch, and also to see the regulatory landscape continue to become more sophisticated and unfold. I think I started working in this field in 2018. I don't know that we thought there was going to be a dedicated FDA guidance document about psychedelics. That's not something that most of us drug developers see for a drug class very often. And so to see that kind of engagement and general awareness and support is quite encouraging.
Well, let's face it, the early days in this space was very similar to the early days of cannabis when it came to investing. And now that we've kind of been 3-4 years into this, we realize how much different the two industries are. But I think one of the things that really grabbed my interest, actually, it grabbed Anthony and I's interest. We were in Toronto last summer speaking to a few individuals. We found out some of the people within your actual company have a background working with the FDA. And when we saw Lycos last year, it looked all promising with a lot of the data that they reported. However, let's face it, they ran into a lot of the challenges as to the way a lot of these trials were run. And I don't think that can be underestimated. So what grabbed my interest was just the background of some of the members on your team that have FDA experience. Like, in so many words, like, how do you best describe how to properly run a trial versus, because you could have the solution, but it comes down to how you're conducting trials. Like, what are some of the most important things that come to mind if you're looking at that, really don't understand it?
Yeah, well, I think it touches on every group in our organization at every single level. It goes everywhere from how we design studies, how we conduct them, but always quality first. I mean, taking a high integrity, science first approach and building out an organization that can really ensure the quality and the regulatory bars are being met. And so, I mean, in that regard, a few things that we do methodologically, right? In phase 2, we felt there's a need to develop clear data to demonstrate a dose response, to actually pick a dose to move forward into phase 3. From phase 2 to phase 3, in all these studies, we've used centralized raters that address concerns around functional unblinding and these things that aren't quite unique to psychedelics, but have certainly captured the spotlight over the last few years. And we have a really robust quality group that is involved at every step of the way. We go to great lengths to ensure adequate safety monitoring, that we're capturing adverse events, and really first and foremost starts with a constructive engagement with FDA, making sure that we're listening and presenting rational arguments, but also we very much look at FDA as partners in trying to navigate a new and complex landscape, and they've been really, really great partners to date, and we want to continue that as we go forward.
To further on Shad's question, when it comes to trial design, diagnostics, let's say data reading on the back end of these trials, are there any functions yet that have been implemented using AI within the process to streamline and optimize what's going on? And if there are, is the FDA receptive to that, or are they not caught up yet enough within the sphere of technology to be regulating to that degree?
Well, certainly more broadly, and we use various tools for various purposes, including AI in some regards. Some of that generally resides outside of what we think of as the sort of core submission package or documentation, right? So when we were doing statistical analyses and reporting out TLFs in a clinical study report, we really rely on well-established methodologies and software and such. But certainly once you've database locked, you've reported out the data from the study, then you have this incredibly rich database of information that we can use AI.
Right.
We have a few folks on our team who are AI engineers to help us build models, help us understand things in our data, but also I think outside of it. shouldn't be lost on anybody that FDA approval, and we've been very adamant about this, even in regards to the intersection of therapy plus versus drug labeling.
Mhm.
You know, FDA has the authority and the mandate to approve drugs, and effectively to approve a label that then allows you to market that drug. There's a lot in a pharmaceutical organization that needs to be done then to facilitate the adoption of products and to surround the drug by itself, to make sure you try to maximize your potential to get the drug out there in the world if we're fortunate enough to get an approval. So there are other ways we're using AI with a sort of longer term strategy in mind, outside of FDA submissions or FDA approval. I think we're potentially most useful.
And then one thing that we talk about in psychedelics and cannabis, and I don't even want to talk about, speculate on a lot, is where pharma sits in the equation. As it pertains to psychedelics, we've seen a couple of acquisitions in the space of smaller companies. Where does pharma sit currently? Are they on the sidelines and watching everything progress with companies like yourself and the larger players in the space? Are they engaging in conversations actively? Like, where do they sit?
Absolutely engaging in conversations. I think there is a dynamic generally that unfolds, where in the sort of regulatory climate that we have had and the financial climate that we have had, there have been different approaches for pharma M&A, and we certainly our purpose as an organization, our vision for the future is to build an organization that's self-sustaining, that can go indefinitely into the future. We're happy to have those conversations when we get the inbounds, which we do. But our purpose is to really think about how we can generate value for our shareholders, how we can get these products to patients, and that allows us to really think long term and think constructively, and also really invest in doing this the right way.
Well, you say long term. I like to ask this question to CEOs: what do you envision MindMed 3 years from now? What comes to mind? You think about that?
Oh, we think about it all the time. It's obviously, the public company, it's always difficult to talk about 3 years in the future, else we get into trouble. But no, we certainly have ambitious goals beyond even what we are working on late stage today, and we have such an incredible people and organization that we've been able to build over the last few years, that we want to continue broadening what we're doing, and obviously have successful drug programs and launch of those products, hopefully, but then continue to broaden out and again really build an organization that's it's a high impact CNS organization.
And then as the future of not the future, I guess, as the viability of psychedelics develops, where do you see these drugs living on the clinician side? Do you think that this is going to be a model where you see psychedelic assisted therapy clinics, or are they going to live in the realm of traditional psychiatry, which is what we see today? You go to a psychiatrist, they diagnose you, they then prescribe the medications that they see fit due to your, I don't want to call it illness, but illness. How do you see that unfolding? Or is it too opaque right now as it relates to the therapies coming out of these trials to really make that decision from a business standpoint?
Well, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive, right?
Okay.
I think that the reality, one of the real realities here is that prescribing, and I think it's something that may have been conflated by that sort of history of the intersection of drug versus therapy. Drug prescribing happens by physicians. Drug monitoring and delivery and the centers of delivery can be integrated with that prescriber, can be separated from that prescriber, can have a whole different dynamic to them. So as we think about the future unfolding, our goal, both in terms of the labeling and the commercial vision for what we're able to roll out, is to enable as broad of adoption as possible. Right?
Okay.
We don't want to have things that are standing in the way of patient access or of businesses or pre-existing clinics adapting to deliver these products. And we see a huge drive and a pull from providers and business owners out there too, who today are doing ketamine and Spravato treatments, who tell us by and large that if our product ultimately is approved, they're incredibly excited about the potential to bring it into their practices. So we want to enable a wide range of settings and modalities where the products can be delivered, so that we can reach that maximum scale.
Latest earnings, Q4 24. You have cash balance at $273.7 million. You also did report larger than expected loss of 41 cents per share. But despite this, company is still showing a strong buying signal from firms like H.C. Wainwright at $55 price target. So if there are investors that are showing a little bit of nervousness or concerns based on the larger than expected loss, what's your response to them?
Well, certainly when we look at EPS as a pre-revenue company, I think those metrics may not be the best financial metrics to look at. What's going to drive value creation for us here is getting through these trials and getting applications submitted to FDA and hopefully approved and the products marketed. So as a development stage company, we are very much heads down executing with tight controls. And I think if we look at the scale of our expenditures and the size of our organization, how efficient we've been able to be over the last several years, we've stayed on the very skinny side of our industry, and we intend to keep doing that as we move forward. So certainly no concerns that we've really heard expressed in that regard. All the eyes are on getting these trials enrolled and getting to high quality data next year.
Well said. Well, if you ever get a chance to dust off those golf clubs, maybe a round of golf you should play with is RFK. Had some interesting news about the space recently, and he seems like a pretty good background in the psychedelic space. But did you see that? What was your reaction based on his support for the industry?
I think regardless of who is in which office at state or federal levels, we're excited by the broad realization that there is a huge need here, that the treatments that are available today have shortcomings, and that this could really offer a new path, a new opportunity forward. So, we have been certainly happy to see any offices engaging and being supportive of research in the field. Obviously, a lot of news happening recently more broadly of changes at FDA and HHS, and it's something we're monitoring very closely. But given that dynamic, given the engagement across the board and what we're working on, we've fortunately been quite insulated from any of the negative repercussions there, and are really continue to have a great engagement with the agency.
Hey, anytime anybody's appointed as the head of the HHS, I know you're probably not going to read too much into it because you got to focus on the day-to-day stuff, but that's not a bad thing when you're getting that kind of exposure and attention from someone that kind of an official within the administration. But hopefully we get to see more, like I said, top-line data that's going to be read out. Of course we are, and I think it's a moment of truth time for a lot of the industry for when you look at it as a whole. But it looks promising, but one thing's for sure, got to be patient in this space. But listen, appreciate you checking in here today, and all the best moving forward. Okay. And let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Robert. They have definitely become, I would say, not showing any favors of who I'm liking, what company or whatever. But when it comes to psychedelic space, you can understand why MindMed's at the front of that conversation.
I mean, yeah, the proof is in the pudding when you look at their trials and look at where the company's at and look at their cash balance. And the human capital that's there. I'm trying to see what's going on with the market with Trump and his tariff meeting that he just had.
Futures up a few percent currently with Trump speaking on tariffs. Massive drop.
No, then they said the futures dropped. Where are we?
New U.S. tariffs coming bigly.
The futures are up. The Dow's up 235 points. The NASDAQ is up 150 points. But we don't cover tariffs or macro, so I'm sure everybody's like, you guys are talking about the equivalent of football right now. Higher separation countries.
Gary writes, been away for a few weeks. High Tide and MSOS are still dropping, which are my core MJ portfolio. Any words of wisdom when to invest more? Can't tell you when to invest more, my friend, but all I can say is that the cannabis industry included, everything's been, let's face it, hit hard over these last couple of weeks. So I know one industry that's going to get hit when you start to see a turn in the overall market is the cannabis space.
Dude, the S&P, Mitch, the S&P's up 40 points. Oh, no, this is as of 420. CNBC. Why does CNBC have such lag data? That's what I get for looking at this.
Mitch, you there? What are we seeing? It's down. I believe you. I believe you. Mitch, how much is it down?
I mean, it doesn't. Market watch.
Tony doesn't see me. Yes, I'm here. How much is it down, Mitch?
No, I'm still seeing the Dow up. Unless this stuff is wrong, which it's not.
It was up big time, then reversed, is what Happy just wrote. What are you on right now? What do you see? What's
Market watch and CNBC. Oh, no, yeah. Well, no. Yeah. The Qs are down right now. 3%.
Okay.
Charles Schwab has much better. Well, that's a big drop. Yeah.
Trump to impose tariffs of at least 10% higher.
Yeah, NASDAQ is down 3% right now.
Countries.
That's a big drop.
Just reading some of this stuff right now. Says tariffs will not be full reciprocal. Given non-monetary barriers, we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us. So the tariffs will not.
25% on cars is bullshit. Mercedes and Audi and Porsche are all going to go up.
Jobs in factories will come roaring back. Bill Maher actually said it best the other day. He wants to bring manufacturing back. Is that not very 1970s?
Sure. So we're going to get absolutely fucked for the next 3 years?
I don't know.
Factories don't just...
You know who's winning in all this?
Factories, the only place where they build factories in a couple of weeks is China. We don't do things that efficiently.
China's
bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. is going to take years.
Yes. Meanwhile, China's focusing on AI and becoming that much more sophisticated with how the world's going to operate. This is the problem when you have a 79-year-old president in.
We're very focused on AI.
Yeah, but they're
OpenAI just got a $40 billion investment yesterday.
Right. So focus on that. And this other stuff, like, I don't know how it's going to play out. It's becoming so complicated, but
well, it's not going to affect cannabis, so we're lucky. We're in our own little special silo.
17 factories are coming to America. Mexico's got 25% tariffs. He's putting them on tomorrow with no lead time for companies. Okay, we'll get into that a little bit later, and it's not what we focus on, but it's also very helpful information. But as I said earlier, Margaret Brody from Rubicon Organics is going to be coming on with us again on Friday to talk about their latest earnings. We'll have a quick recap and analysis of their latest earnings all morning's baked-in newsletter, which you can actually subscribe to by scanning this QR code to the right here, delivered to your inbox weekdays, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And as well as I said, Bina Goldenberg is going to be coming on next Monday. Doug Drysdale, a week from today, from Cybin, will be hopping on with us. We got some decent-sized guests coming on over the next 7 days. So stick with us as we try to provide as much clear direction as possible from what we're seeing and hearing in the cannabis and psychedelic space. Anything else you want to add? You good?
I am good. My throat is killing me right now.
All right. Listen, appreciate everybody for logging on here today. We'll see you back here Friday at 11 a.m. In the meantime, stay tight, stay calm, don't get too crazy, and we'll see if, as they always say, this too shall pass. We need that expression right now. Interesting times. But Emilio, yes, you're welcome. Thank you. And again, we'll see you guys all here Friday at 11 a.m. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Arns.
Arns.
Pull the hook. Arnie.
That's a wrap.
He fell asleep. Cut. If I just click end stream, will this end?
Are we on? Are we on?
All right. I'm going to try something.
Don't wait.
What?
Hold on. Don't screw anything up.
Hold on. I'm going to run the disclaimer. I got this, I think.
Are we live?
We are. Hold on. Bye. And cut.
Hold on.
What?
Let me try this. Call him. Hold on.
The mics are live. The comments must be great right now.
Oh yeah, they're great. Disclaimer.